Hey guys, welcome to the tutorial on how to add a book onto the Candle e-reader device. The Candle is a device that allows you to read large amounts of text in VRChat. Such text can include speeches, theater scripts, books, short stories, large descriptive texts, really anything you can imagine that takes a couple pages or more. This is a device that can format that for you and make it readable to other VRChat players. My name is Ryan, otherwise known as Clearly in VRChat, and this is going to be the step-by-step guide on how to do that. So you're going to need a couple things before we begin. We need VRChat, Unity Hub, and Visual Studio installed. We need the VRChat Worlds SDK, the most recent version. We need Udon Sharp, the most recent version. We need Cyan Emu, the most recent version. And finally, we need the Candle Prefab, the most recent version. So we have four GitHub projects or four Unity packages that need to be loaded into our scene in order for the Candle Prefab to work correctly. So let's start from the basics. We're going to open up a blank Unity project on VRChat's current Unity build, and let's name this Candle Tutorial. Now, the Candle device is going to require all of these Unity packages loaded in. So I'm just going to skip ahead and import each Unity package one by one up until all four of them exist into the scene. Okay, so our project is now fully loaded with these four Unity packages. I've done nothing to modify the scene. I've just imported those four packages. And the first thing I'm going to do is load up the Candle scene, which is located in the Scenes folder, and it's called Main Scene. Let us also open up the VRChat control panel. And log in. Since we did load in the scene, we should probably set up all of these layers in collision matrix first, and then save the project and click on Run again. Okay, great. So we have just gone from a completely blank Unity project that had nothing loaded into it into loading in four packages and resolving all of the errors. So our console is showing no errors, and if we were to interact with the tablet device, we will see that the formatting looks good. The commands for changing font size, they look good. Commands for rotating the tablet look good. And the commands for changing the font type, that also looks good. So yeah, looks like there are no bugs, and we are good to continue on. So we have 3 books loaded onto the device. One is The Power of Habit, one is a Social Skills Guidebook, and one are the Candle rich text commands, which showcase all of the rich text commands exposed to the Candle device. But what we're interested in is adding our own book. So we can essentially read our book the same way we can read these other books. So if we want to add our own book, what we would do is, so if we want to add in our book, what we would do is go into Assets, Books, Blank Book Template, click on Text, and then we're going to open up these 7 text files. Okay. And if we open up these text files, what we see is just a blank book template with, there's just random text added. So nothing fancy. And what we want to do is we want to convert this text into something that's readable for the Candle device. So all we have to do is click on Wax, go into our index. So blank book template is located at index 2. So in Wax, we go to index 2 and we expand these. We will add in our text assets. So if we have 7 text files, we just add in all 7 of them into this list. If we had, for instance, 20 text files, what we would have to do is we would have to add in, all 20 of these, but since we have 7, just populate these. Now for block, we need a folder called blocks, and what blocks will do is it'll contain all of the data structures for slicing the text in this folder. So Wax contains all of the text. Now what we need to do is we need to slice these texts into readable data structures so that they can be stored in blocks. To do that, we then click on WIC. We change the default book index to 2, which is the same index as the blank book template. We click on is execute, and then we run the scene. And so what I'm going to showcase here is if I open up this folder called blocks, there's not anything in it, but when I click play, what will happen is that this script called WIC will take all of the text files in this folder and it will slice them up into readable data structures. So click on play. Okay. And we're going to exit game. And what we've just seen here is that before we had an empty folder, but now we have these text files. We have these text files that are permanently saved. After exiting the game, we still see them with the letter B after them. So, I'll showcase the difference between a text and a block. So a text kind of looks like this, right? You have the header, you have the paragraphs. It makes sense, but the blocks are the readable data structures. for slicing the text so that it can be understood by the interface. So when we do have is execute checked on the wick, what it's doing is it's compiling that. Now that it's compiled, we can go back into Wax. Wax is essentially our memory bank for reading our files, and what we would just do then is move the text files from the block into the list. So we have at index 2 we have text all populated, and at index 2 we have block all populated. And we have 7 text files and 7 blocks to structure those text files. We're going to save our scene, and what we're going to do is click on play while making sure that is execute is unchecked, since we don't need to compile the blocks anymore. Now, what I should expect to happen if I click on yearbook here is that these text files from table of contents all the way up to acknowledgements, all of these text files should then be readable in Unity. So let's click on yearbook here. It takes us to block number 1. So if we go back, we actually go to our table of contents. If we go forward, we can see our chapters. Chapter 4, Chapter 5, and the last chapter. So we've been able to successfully translate text into VRChat, and what I'm going to do is change the font size. Looks good. Font types look good. Rotation looks good. No errors. Everything looks great. Awesome. Now the last step we need to do to validate that this is working correctly is build it and test in VRChat. Alright, so we are loaded into VRChat. We have our virtual reality headset on, and we can see that our device is loaded in correctly. Previously, we just compiled our book into yearbook here. So what we're going to do is take our cursor, hover it over the book cover, and just press the trigger button. We can see the chapter name. So we're currently on chapter 1, and we can see how far progress is in the book based on where we're located. So we're at the end of the chapter, we're at 100%. Next chapter brings us to chapter 2, and we're at 0%. And then this essentially continues all the way up until the end of the book, where we're at acknowledgements, 100%. Same thing vice versa, going the other direction. Table of contents look good. And yeah, last thing to check are the different font sizes and font types. So if you use your keyboard and you were to press the 4 or the 6 button on your number pad, it will change the font size and the font type. And if you press the 0 button, it will change the orientation of the tablet. Those commands are going to actually be stored in the options menu, which is on the bottom left, but that hasn't been implemented yet. But once it does, yeah, you can now read a book in VRChat. Probably also change the size as well. So if this size is a bit too big for your avatar, You can shrink it, get something a little more realistic, like an iPad. Add it into your world. If your world's a home world or a hangout world, just maybe add one of these devices in and sit down, and if someone joins the world and it's empty, or maybe they need some introverted time, they can just, have something to keep them company. Learn some good stuff from it. So yeah, this is the Candle e-reader device. The GitHub and the prefab is located right over here. So that will essentially provide you the prefab, add this into your world. And yeah, you can add some very complex rich text. This is bare bones rich text, so we didn't add anything fancy, but again, the other book that was loaded onto this device called the Candle Rich Text commands, those contain all of the rich text that this device can process. Hey everyone, just one thing I wanted to add before closing out this video are a few things. The first thing is that this cover, your book here, can actually be changed with whatever cover you'd like to use. So the cover I'm using right now is the blank book template cover, which you can swap out for any other book cover. And all you'd have to do is just go to row 2, blank book template, and just change this image with something else. Another thing is that when you do click on this button over here, what it's actually doing is it's calling a function that reads the text. So this function is going to be assigned to the index of the book that you're reading. So if your book is 02, then your text and your block in wax should be located at 02, and the button that you click on should execute 02 function. The naming of the folders is actually critical because this actually tells us where the text files are located based on the first 2 digits of the folder. Folder names are sensitive, so these names are sensitive, these names are sensitive, and these names are sensitive. So when in doubt, when adding in new books, stick to the format of 2 digits space dash space your book name, and these 3 folders exactly is spelled the same name, same capitalization in the front, and same thing with 2 digits dash the chapter name. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can add more than 4 books. I have other rows hidden, but you can unhide these rows and enable scroll rect on the selection menu object, and what that'll do is it'll allow you to scroll to other books. So you can actually scroll it to have 8 books or 10 books or 20 books, or really how many as much as you want. But for now, I have these rows hidden because we're working off of 4 books for now. But if you do want to expand the number of books that the Candle device holds, you can explore these additional rows I've added. the last thing I wanted to showcase was the rich text commands. So the book that we loaded in was fairly simply structured, but the actual rich text commands can look significantly uh, more complex, more rich in depth. So we're going to actually um, load up this Candle rich text command book, and it'll showcase uh, the kinds of features and formatting we can add to our text. So um, this is what it looks like if there is no formatting added or very little formatting added. Pretty boring. And this contains um, the commands that we can use to format paragraphs. So we can add bold text, italic text, small caps, tabbed, a small image. We have multiple headers. So if you put a rich text bracket with H3, it'll convert this text into these formats. We also have rich text for creating quoted text. And we also have rich text that supports bulleted lists and sort of tabbed lists. So we have a low indent bulleted list and then a high indent bulleted list or numerical list. Finally, putting it all together, you can see the full depth of the possibilities on the text formats you can use on the Candle device. So this uses a mixture of quotes, headers, italics, bolded font, small text, etc. This is really what the depth of this e-reader allows. Not just necessarily like a blank paragraph, but it can do a lot more. And this is kind of what a great reading experience would look like, something that looked like this. Very dynamic and rich in formatting. And if you would like to see how I formatted this and how I structured this, that can be found by opening up Books, Rich Text Commands, Text, and clicking on Acknowledgements, and you can see all of the ways I was able to add rich text. So if I wanted to see, for instance, like how I got this text, or this text, or this text, all I would need to do is just view this, and what it really is it's just a header 1 bracket, a header 1 closing bracket, a header 2 opening bracket, a header 2 closing bracket, small caps opening, small caps closing, bold opening, bold closing. If I want to add a tab, I put a T. If I want to do a bulleted list, all I do is in capital A with a dot, capital B with a dot, capital C with a dot. And that's really what the underlying data structure looks like, or the underlying formatting looks like for rich text on the Candle e-reader. And this is how it's formatted. And if I wanted to see what were the formatting used for chapter 2, well, I can see right here. If I like how H1 text looks, this is the structure format. If I like how H4 text look and I wanted to add that into my book, it would look like this, and applies to small caps and tabbed text as well. So I want to add small caps, this, I want a tab in my text, put a tab right here. I want a small image, a sprite, put that right there. So that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I've showcased how to import your own book into the Candle e-reader device. I have showcased the capabilities of adding rich text to your book. I have displayed that multiple books can be added onto a single Candle device, and the books can support 3 different kinds of text and 3 different kinds of text sizes, along with vertical and horizontal rotation on the actual text display itself. Just a quick reminder that if you ever do decide to add or modify or change any of your text, whether you add, let's say, a space here, or maybe you make, a word bold, you would have to recompile this text through WIC. So you would have to do is execute, make sure your default book index is set correctly. If you decide to change even one character on any of these text files, because the Candle e-reader device is actually character perfect in how it processes this text. So if there's even one character off based on how it compiles it, it's basically like deleting a semicolon in a block of code. The e-reader will not recognize it, and it'll count things differently. So while you are adding in your books and populating these text assets, always remember to recompile through WIC when you're ready to have it displayed on the Candle device. There are other considerations that you'll need to take when you do upload to the Candle. One consideration is that you always need a new line at the end of your block of text. So whether your block of text, however long it is, it always must end in a new line. And there are some specifications on what Unicode characters can be included. So I would suggest that when you do add your books in, you add it in incrementally, such as you start with the blocks of text, make sure that it works correctly. Then you add in maybe the bold text, you add in the headers. And when those work correctly, then you maybe consider adding in Unicode characters or bulleted text, things that are more complex. And then you compile that and then you check it. And then this way, if something does go wrong, then you can identify, okay, well, maybe it was this Unicode character that we can't use. I would not suggest adding in an entire book fully formatted and then hitting compile on the first time. I think it's more of an incremental process on adding books into this device, so you can spend less time debugging that any sort of edge cases. And yeah, just remember you need to keep a new line at the end of every single text block, and that these text brackets always have to be formatted exactly the same way they are formatted on the Candle rich text commands. So you can't really add an H1 and then kind of leave it blank and just forget about it. You always have to make sure that they follow these rules. And that pretty much covers really what you need to start using the Candle device. And if you do have any questions, you can reach out to me about them on Discord. I'm happy to help out and see more textual media get published on VRChat for the community. And that brings us to the end of the tutorial.